So you were lucky enough to spend all of your money on one of these machines. And I'm here to tell you, you did a great thing. You're going to like this machine. And I really hope you do like this machine. This is the box you're going to get your machine in. Your Bullet. By machine, I mean Bullet Aillio R1. And it's a double boxed deal with a really nice big foam insert and an insert on the bottom holding the roaster in the middle of the box. And I just wanted to point out that the manual goes into a lot of sort of what ifs about your drum being out of alignment and the belt, and you have to do this thing. That was an issue with early models that were shipping because they didn't have the packaging down. And since they've had the packaging down, it's pretty much been a non-issue. Some very, very slight sounds, like I actually tested this one, it has a slight like sound as the drum rotates. That's really going to likely go away within a couple of rows. Some of the other issues with drum position and stuff, they give you the tools and the etc., but it's really not been an issue. So let's look at the machine. So what I wanted to do is just run through my experience with just setting it up and getting the machine out of the box and set up, because there was some mistakes I made and I just thought I could really quickly tell you about them. First of all, in the box, there's no manual. You want to go to the site if you order it, download the manual. I printed the manual because it's great to have it next to you with just to refer to. There's no software in the box. You need to download the software for the machine. This is a PC-only machine at this point. They're making a Mac version, or you could run it in an emulation mode. But PC, IBM equivalent only at this time. And that is roast time with a previous roast that I'd done recording, which I could just play back to record another batch. So the next thing I want to tell you is that I had trouble with the USB. That was because there's a standard USB port right here, which is actually only a powered port for the light, which is here, and which they include an extra light as well, which is kind of them. For some reason, I just thought that was the only USB port to input the computer. It's actually right back here. So another thing you're going to have that's not included, because I think they just think everyone has one, is a USB micro. I had another issue with this, which is that the USB micro, I was using a super low quality one that I'd gotten free with something, and I did an update on the roast time and it stopped working. So I contacted them. It turns out the first thing he suggested was the quality of the USB micro is important, and it immediately started working once I had a decent quality one. Yeah, the next thing, I don't understand what I wrote, location. I don't know what that means. Cooling batches, the cooling is super efficient, especially with 500 gram, like a pound. When you get up to full capacity, this is quite full. It's a huge amount of coffee, this roast. Pan just comes right out. You have your filter here, which you need to clean probably between every roast. You can see I didn't last time. Probably every roast if it's dry process, and every other roast if it's wet process. But having a shop vac around when you're using this is so handy, like a small shop vac. One thing I do when I roast is I shake this absolutely level. Then I kind of stir it, shake it level. It's pulling out the bottom, and level, uneven roast is going to pull air unevenly through the mass of coffee. So you want it even in the tray. Let's look at the next thing, see if I can read it. The hopper, yeah. So you have this rubber plug that goes in when you're roasting. You take that out to load the coffee, and you have this sort of oddly shaped dealie here. And there's a little bar in there, and this notch goes on the bar just like this. You can see it kind of fits the profile of the top of the roaster. Well, what that does is on most drum roasters and the Bullet, it has a transfer air tube through the top. And this blocks the transfer air tube when you're dumping green coffee in, so the green coffee doesn't, some of the green coffee doesn't land on the tube. It's actually a problem we even have with our 12 kilo Provat. It gets some coffee up in here. It just sits there and sort of burns over time. So you kind of want to put this in correctly because it's designed to block coffee from going in there. And you still kind of want to pour it a little thoughtfully, not just dump it in. Next thing, the rear filter. So coming around here, I took off the Chaff Collector here. And here's another thing that I did wrong. So this is the Chaff Collector. It's really easy to put this whole unit on the back. You put it there, pull, just kind of hold it. It goes in really easily. And this is where you can get the chaff out, which obviously I didn't do after the last roast. This doesn't fit. It's sort of, sometimes I've roasted with it a little out of place. It doesn't seem to really affect the roast characteristic, the airflow in the drum, if this is a little out of place. The other cool thing is between roasts, you can just take a small shop vac, open this up and pull air out, pull the chaff out from here with a shop vac really easily to keep yourself going if you're doing back-to-back roasting. But I wanted to show you this, and I already went over this in another video. This is a filter, and this is a kind of a big rubber gasket that attaches. And the first thing I did when I got this is I pulled this whole thing off, which is no problem, except it's a little difficult to seat on there. And out of this comes this sort of filter basket. It looks like a tea basket. If you pull this whole thing off, really take some time to put it back in. It has a lip. I'll just show you. It has a lip here. Can you see that, Byron? Yeah, it has a lip that goes on here. And you just need to get it seated right. Now I'll tell you why is because I didn't get it seated right. I put this back in, and if you can see here, this is your main fan for your drum, this squirrel cage type fan. And this contacted here and was rubbing against the fan. So make sure this is in. Work your basket in just carefully. Make sure that's in and the handle's down. Okay, this needs to be flush. Another thing is, as you use the roaster, is that you really want to look at this basket, not just look at whether it's clean or not. Like I just pulled the handle off of it. I did that before actually, so I think that's just my bad technique. Yeah, twisting is much better. And you really want to go look at this through the light, and you can see that this is quite clogged. So what I'll be doing is taking a fine mesh metal brush, you know, like one of those metal toothbrush, and working with that. Yeah, and this is something I did before, which is pulled the handle off, which isn't. But I would like to see, I think we'll probably stock extras of these here. The last thing a mistake I made here, which is around on this side. So these come, this is, for example, you just are going to screw that together. It's in two parts when you get it. As you can see, your trier here for your coffee has a little notch. So if you see it up, you're catching coffee in there, which is not a good thing when you're roasting. You always want to have it down. You always want to have it in this position so the coffee's just hitting off the back. Then when you want to catch coffee, you put it here. But a few times I've roasted and there's green beans in here, so I have to just throw them out. But this caused me some trouble. So this is heavily weighted, your handle for your dump chute here. And what they do is they're giving you a two-sided sort of headless screw. It's got a Allen in this side, and you're going to insert it in here. And then there's a small washer that they have, which is kind of this white little washer, special material, which I seem to have misplaced. And then you're going to thread this in. And that weight is really important to keep the door shut. Well, one of the things I did is because you can put this screw in to whatever depth you want, is I put it in not far enough. So this screw is sticking out. It was going through here and contacted the drum and was rubbing against the drum inside. As you can see, the drum's just right there. So what you want to do is, what I do is I bought Loctite you get it from Home Depot or a automotive store, and I put Loctite on the screw to put it in there, let it set up. Then I put it here. And I'm just very careful on this, that the threading, I think there's a lot of stress on that there. So just make sure that that threading is good, and don't abuse this thing too much. But yeah, those are all the things I did wrong and that I hope you do not do wrong. And I also want to just quickly point out that for like 2 weeks, I used this without a PC. You can just use this roast interface completely. The one thing about the roast interface here, you have full access to all the settings, is that you can't save them. And you also can't, this is only in Celsius. While you can switch the software to Fahrenheit and look at everything in Fahrenheit, you're only going to see Celsius on here, and they probably can change that with a next hardware update.